everyone. Welcome to Tangle 11. So after our pit stop in database land, now it's time to get back to the task at hand. Open up my Jira board and see that we are working on this ticket here, which is about an API for our primary concept in the application, which is an entry. I wrote some Gherkin in a previous episode. Now is the time that we're going to do something with this. So I'm going to copy this from the ticket, open up IntelliJ, and go into my resources folder and create a features folder. And then underneath this, some kind of a section name. So we'll call it entry for now. All right, now I'm going to create my first Gherkin file. I'll call this entry bean feature and paste the Gherkin in. You can see how IntelliJ understands it and color codes it appropriately. All right, so we need to create a parallel code package underneath test. So it's source test Java, and then create it in this directory. And we're going to do the same exact thing, which is make a package called features. And then I'm going to do a section, which is entry, and then create the actual tests that are going to get wired up to this. But why do the work yourself when computers will do it for you? These little yellow squigglies are IntelliJ's way of saying, hey, let me do some work for you. So if you hover over this, it'll show a little light bulb, which you can click and then do an action. So I'm going to pick create all step definitions. And now I'm going to choose the package that I just picked, which is test Java, blah, 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 and then entry. So that's where the new class is going to go. And then I'm going to call the class entry bean feature and hit OK. Magically, all of these Gherkin lines get put into some actual Java code. It doesn't know what Cucumber is, so the next thing we got to do is add Cucumber to the project. So let's go to the web again, and I'm going to search for Cucumber Spring. And you notice I didn't put Maven in this time. I'm going to go get some extra help from somewhere because I know that Cucumber is a little bit more than just one Maven artifact. So I'm going to go to Beldung, who is actually really good. If a little ad laden. This is the problem with all these tutorials on the web, is that not only are they throwing ads at you willy-nilly, but they also kind of over-explain. Now, Beldung is pretty good because they get to the point quickly, ads aside. So if I scroll down here, you can see that I need to add some dependencies. So I'm going to just copy and paste these and put them in my Palm. And then now I know that there's 3 of these because we're going to use this with JUnit. And we're going to use it with Spring. So one thing, a little detour here. You see these version numbers? Now, in this case, they're the same exact version number, so it's less of a problem. But another approach to your POM file is to add what's called a bill of materials, or a BOM. And then you can leave off the version numbers of these. So if I just get rid of the version numbers here, and the BOM is going to, basically bundle together things that have tested versions together. So I'm just going to search for Cucumber bomb. And sure enough, here we are. We can pick the top one. Now, the thing about bill of materials is that they don't go into your main dependency section. They go into something called dependency management. So I'll put it up here. So it's dependency management. And there is a dependencies sub in here. And then you can put your new BOM. You notice the type is a POM. So in other words, it's basically a file just like this one that is coordinating a bunch of other things. So now let's go ahead and finally hit the M and see if this works. Okay, there's an error here, so let's take a look at. Oh, okay. So Maven Central's example has scope test. So you don't really need to understand this. Just know that what you want here instead is the word import. So let's try one more time. And this time we got all the whites, so that's great. Let's go back to our test class, tan entry being feature, and you can see now everything except for this exception looks like it's working. One thing, you see how it puts the package name in this? You don't need to have all of these. So I'm just going to do a big search and replace here. And grab this and just get rid of it. If I hover over this, it's going to say, do you want to put this in there? And voila. So I'm going to do it for all of them. And you can see that it put it up here. Let's do the same thing here. Get rid of the package name in front of this class. And then it asks if you want to import something. So we'll do that. All right. And I'll get rid of the comments. So this is a Cucumber test class. Let's look at this a little bit more. So if you compare it to this, which by the way, you saw that all of the yellow squiggles went away. This text gets matched within here. This is a regular expression. So that's a special syntax for matching text. This means the beginning, and this means the end. Yes, it's cryptic, but that's just how it is. So what it's basically saying is anything that matches this exact string right here is going to be connected to this method. So if I were to put something at the end, it will no longer connect. And the reason is it has to be the last thing because of this little thing. The other bit of regular expression is down here. It says entry list is, and then in parentheses, it has this cryptic looking thing. So what this means, the / means that the D is something special, which is digit or a number. And then the plus says there has to be one or more digits. So all that means is that it's a number, like 3. And then this gets passed in. It takes everything in the parentheses and it gives it to this argument. So we can write some code that's going to match the two. There is a simpler syntax for Cucumber, but this is what IntelliJ generates for you. I'll go into that later on. For now, I'm going to call this length, and I put a P in front of parameters to distinguish them from things that are inside. Do the same thing here. And I'll just call that P value. And so the first one here, we have to create some sample entries. And you can see that here I define them. This first section, the background section, is something that is going to run in every one of these scenarios. So each scenario is essentially a standalone test. And this sets up the conditions for each of these tests. Basically what this is doing is it's seeding the database with some test data. These are the field names for the table, or the column names. And this one is not right. So let me put body in here for all of these. So how do we do this? This is English language. And how do we translate this into this? How do we save this stuff to the database in this method? Well, it's shockingly simple because of Spring. What I'm going to first do is we created this JPA repository here. So I'm going to auto wire this, and I'm just going to call it entry repo. As you can see, it's complaining about auto wired. And if you want a clue as to why it is, you just hover over. And it says that all auto wired members must be defined as a component. So Spring components are central to Spring itself. Basically, it's the key concept for inversion of control. Tan entry repo is a component, and you want to auto wire it inside another component. So what kind of a component is this? Well, in this case, it's a test. It's a Spring Boot test. And that's a kind of component, and you can see the auto wired goes away. Other components are REST controller and service. Now that we've got a database wired up to our test class, we want to get this table information into the database. So first I have to add a parameter here, which is data table, which is a cucumber class. And it sucks in all this information here. And then I really just need one line of code, at least for this method. Entry repo, save all. So this is going to save everything that I put in the parameters here to the database. And then p data table as list. So it's just going to take that table that comes in from the Gherkin file. And then I have to put what kind of a table it is, or what the POJO is. So this will be tan entry and then put class at the end. So this is just telling it the format that's going to go into the database. So again, you don't need to understand this, just follow the pattern. Now this would be all you need, but Spring and Cucumber need a little bit of extra help talking to each other, and you just have to do this one time. So, in the future, it will be one line. We need to create what's called a transformer. That's going to help map from one thing to another. And I'm going to go into my test and main package and create a new package, which is called util. So I'm going to put my utility classes in here and create a new one, which is tan data table transformer. Now, I know I need to make a transformer, and I know that it's fairly simple, but right now I don't remember how to do it. And this happens all the time in development. The most important thing, if you want to be a great developer, is get your Google skill up. So, for example, I would just go there and type in cucumber is the most important thing, data table, and transformer. And this might get me close to the exact copy and pastable bit of code that I need. I happen to know that there's another thing called an object mapper, and maybe that'll get me even closer. As important as knowing what Google search to use is knowing where to drill down. And you get this over time, and you're going to have to wade through a lot of detail that you don't really need. Like right here, I can see this is not anything related to what I want. So resist the urge to just dive in and read everything. Although this is a little bit good right here. But no, this is not it. So then I don't know, how about this one looks pretty good. and see if there's a, nope, this is using something called converter. And spend, 15, 20 minutes looking. And the beauty here is that when you figure out how to do something for the first time, then you can just copy your old code. And you build a little library of these little nuggets that you can use. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Here, this might be good. Let's see. And the problem with all of these is that they start at the beginning. It's like, I don't need to know what cucumber is. I don't need to know all of these different things. I don't really need this example. Don't need to look at it. So this is looking better right here. Yeah, but it's got this register module thing. That's probably because it has something to do with some idiosyncratic thing that they're doing. So if I go a little bit further down, there it is. This is the code I'm looking for. How do I know that this is the code that I'm looking for? Well, I recognize it, but I don't remember default parameter transformer, default data table cell transformer. I never will. But what I can do is grab this and then go in here and fix it up. So first thing, I know that I need that object mapper. This is a tricky thing sometimes when you have to choose which component for a similarly named thing. So right now what I would do is go back to here and then see which one they're talking about. So you can see right here, if I look at object matter, they're talking about the Jackson one. So here, and they don't always put the imports. So sometimes you have to experiment. All right, so I'm going to put that in there. Jackson. All right. And one of the things, by the way, when you're coding, keep an eye up here and you can see when there's any errors. And then you can look at this and see exactly where it is. So I can click here and see that there's an extra brace. So I can get rid of that. And now this will compile. Let's try it out. I got my breakpoint here. Go into my feature file. I'm going to run this scenario using this, which will start with this, which is what I'm testing. Hit debug, run Spring. Looks good. Stopped here on the breakpoint. Going to open up the database. You can double click this to open up a database view. There are no rows in the database. And I'm going to hit F8 to step over the line. And I got an error. Let's see what that error is. Okay, this one I recognize. Has to do with how they do the numbering of the rows. I'm going to go back to tan entry and put in a strategy here. And this is something that I left off. Let's not think too hard about it. Run it again. Okay, double check. Is there anything in here? Nope. And then F8 to step over the line. No error. Refresh. There's my data. Beautiful. Okay. Next time we're going to finish the rest of the cucumber tests. Thanks for listening.